So hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for the second session in our co-production webinar series, which is all about the advantages of co-production. Thank you for spending time with us, and especially over your lunchtime. Hopefully you can grab a bite to eat and a coffee whilst you're watching the session today. And whether co-production is something you're already familiar with, or you're just beginning to explore what it's all about, this space is really open to anyone with an interest who wants to learn more or maybe have a bit of a refresher. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get started. We're using Zoom webinar for today's session. So this means you're watching from kind of like an audience view while the panelists and I appear on screen. So that means you haven't got cameras and you're all muted. We're not going to be running a Q&A in this session today, but I will put my email address in the chat box. So if you've got any questions that come up, please feel free to get in touch afterwards. And I can also put you in touch with any of our speakers as well, if you have any questions for them. We have a British Sign Language interpreter with us today, who's on screen, Tim. So you will see him alongside the speakers. If you prefer, there is a button at the bottom of the screen on the black bar, which says interpreter. So if you want to click on that, you can kind of bring him up in a different window and resize or move the box if you need to. We also have closed captions, which you can click the CC at the bottom of the screen, and that will bring up the captions for you. So before we get started, I'll introduce myself. If you don't know who I am, I'm Liddie and I work at Disability Rights UK. So we're a disabled people's organisation, which means we're led and run by disabled people, and we work across the UK to champion disabled people's rights. My role here is co-production lead, and in practice, that means I spend a lot of my time talking about how we can work better with people with lived experience. And co-production, at its core, is about professionals and people with lived experience creating and delivering things together. It leads to stronger, more meaningful outcomes for people using services, for those providing them, and for organisations as a whole. When real experiences shape the work from the very beginning, what we design is going to be more grounded, more relevant, and overall more likely to work in real life. Just a little bit about why we're running this series to give you a bit of context. So last summer, we launched our resource. You might have seen it already. It's called the Co-Production Narrative. And this was mainly written with the sports sector in mind, but it's useful for anyone from any organisations in any sectors trying to embed co-production into their practice. And the response to this resource has been really positive. But as I'm sure a lot of you have experienced, sometimes when you launch resources, they can easily be forgotten about once that launch excitement kind of fades away. So this series is really here to keep the momentum going, help to bring the narrative to life, and help to keep the conversation going. So I will put a link in the chat so you can go and have a look at the narrative if you want to have a little look through it after this session. The topics that we've done for these webinars have all been co-produced with the same group who helped to shape the narrative, and we've planned the themes and ideas that we'll be exploring over the next few months. The sessions will be short, so no longer than 30 minutes. We hope this will make them much easier to fit into your day, and we'll also be recording all of the sessions for you to watch in your own time. Just to mention as well that at the end there'll be a quick poll to gather your feedback. And this really does help us to improve what we offer and continue to develop resources like this. So if we ask that you could spend a minute of your time filling this in at the end, we'll be really grateful. So our second webinar that we're running today explores the benefits of co-production and how it can create real value for organisations. We're joined by 3 speakers today. We've got Chloe and Patrick from Durham University, and we've got Vicky from the Good Practice Mentor Programme. And this session will help you to discover the advantages of co-production and how it can transform practice in your organisation. So enough of me talking now. I'm going to hand over to our speakers for their sections. So Vicky, are you all good to go? Come over to you first.
I'm all good to go, Liddie. Thank you very
Okay.
much. And hello, everyone. I'm Vicky O'Donoghue, and I'm representing the Good Practice Mentor Programme today. The Good Practice Mentor Programme was born out of the Aging Better programme, which was a 7-year test and learn national programme based in 14 different geographical locations. And the focus of that program was to reduce loneliness and isolation within older people. That's 50 plus, so it's quite a broad range of people in communities. And now we have kind of expanded that work, and as part of the legacy of the Aging Better program, which really held co-production at its core and was the bedrock really for the design, the delivery, and all sort of elements of the program. We are sharing some of our experience and insights. We're by no means experts, but we do have quite a lot of information to share about how co-production can be really advantageous. Our focus now is to work with a range of different community stakeholders across different sectors, and our role is to help them to reach, engage, connect with, and involve people. And some of kind of the key approaches, I guess, that we hold true when working in a co-productive way. We like to think about different methods that we can bring in to help neutralize the power sort of imbalance as much as we possibly can. We also very much focus on language and trying to kind of really reframe the terminology around co-production and the purpose and I guess aspiration of co-production, and how we can speak in a common language that appeals to the people that we are trying to involve. Really getting to grips with understanding what's fixed and what's flexible within a co-production environment, and using co-production as an approach. And then just testing and learning, trying things out, having a go, seeing what happens. I guess appreciating that co-production is a little bit of a messy process at times. So really trying to meet people in situations where they are at or where you are at, and kind of starting from there, really. I wanted to talk also a little bit about some of the benefits that co-production has brought to our work as we've kind of expanded that out. So yeah, I guess some of the key benefits for us has been around enhanced partnership working and really looking at how to join forces within a community rather than work in silo. Also, finding and reaching out to the hidden voices within our communities, and really being able to, I guess, first of all, find them, but also talk to them about our work in a way that kind of overcomes, this "it's not for me" perspective, and really trying to understand that and the psychology behind that. Embracing the digital space as well, so that we can become more inclusive to help reduce loneliness and isolation using digital methods, not as the only way, but as another way and another platform to be able to work and come together collaboratively. And then finally, ensuring that services, partners, and people connect and communicate in ways that really ensure that the core principles of co-production kind of run through all of the kind of working with approach. So that's really considering the core principles such as equality, diversity, accessibility, and reciprocal ways of working. So I just wanted to share with you a couple of examples around some of those benefits that I've just shared with you now, to give you a little bit of insight into how we have worked together with different organisations from different perspectives. So in terms of kind of enhanced partnership working, coming from the kind of Aging Better lens, one of the Aging Better partnership areas very much looked at their programme as this way of bringing people together as part of a club or a membership, so that everyone was kind of part of this club. So Aging Better in Thanet, who were known as Ageless Thanet, very much kind of nurtured and developed this approach to bring different stakeholders, different partners, people kind of that were benefiting from some of the activities and the support services that were in offer or on offer in that region, were kind of part of this whole. And now, more kind of currently, an example in Sheffield is that we're kind of bringing together support services that focus on multiple disadvantage as part of a network for co-production, where we can all share our learning, our good practice, really kind of lean on each other, and really kind of be a lead, I guess, on the benefits of co-production and how to bring co-production into your day-to-day, and involve different people in different ways. In terms of finding and reaching out to hidden voices, my colleague Jo does lots of work around that, with different community-based organisations, just thinking about stepping stone approaches to really kind of gaining insights into how people perceive things, understanding why people might not kind of think that certain things are for them, and also kind of finding ways to bring people out from their homes or in more formal community spaces into spaces where we can really kind of connect and understand what people need, what people want, what's important to them, or what's most important to them. In terms of embracing the digital space, we did some work with a fantastic arts project down in London, who were interested in finding out after the pandemic, when people were coming back into sort of in-person settings, if they could sort of replicate the in-person experience online, helping and support people that perhaps can't access in person for whatever reason, for a whole host of different barriers, and really kind of embraced that digital space through really understanding how people wanted to connect in that space, how they could get access, how they could again kind of provide this sort of focus on everybody's in this together, getting something out of this in ways that are really kind of two-way. And also, because it was an arts-based project, thinking about how to use creativity and how to be able to take part in activities in a digital space from the comfort of their own homes. And there's a really nice kind of case study and research into that and how that really supported people and enabled them to keep connected, reducing sort of loneliness and isolation within that area. I've got lots more examples that I could share with you, but obviously we've got limited time today, and I will be sharing some resources and some sort of key information that you can tap into to find out more. But just really wanted to get across really what the core advantages we feel are for really embracing co-production as an approach, and also thinking about how to bring those core principles of co-production into your day-to-day and really integrate them in practice. So they're not just like something that is held in a terms of reference or a policy somewhere, that they really are translated in a way that can be embraced and also understood, I think.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Vicky. And yeah, it'd be great if any resources, send them over and then we can send them to everyone after the session.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing. So next we're going over to Chloe and Patrick from Durham University. So Chloe, over to you.
Thanks, Liddie. So hi, I'm Chloe and I'm a PhD student in psychology at Durham University within the Centre for Neurodiversity and Development. And I'm also a research assistant on a project that I did with Patrick, who is the principal investigator on the project, and he's an assistant professor in the Department for Sports and Exercise Sciences at Durham, also a member of our research centre, which is how we met. So I'm going to start by telling you about the project that we worked on together. So it was a project that aims to improve messages about physical activity for disabled adults. So lots of messages that exist about physical activity at the moment tend to be quite ableist and just generally not fit for purpose. So we work with our co-production group through DRUK. So DRUK identified some people that might be interested, and then we as academic researchers came into that group. So I think that kind of created a really nice atmosphere as well, in that some people already did know each other. So the aim of our co-production group was to produce a message about physical activity in whatever format the group wanted for disabled adults. And it was a really broad scope, purposefully broad, designed to be that way so that we could really explore all the different ways that the project could go. So then we used the message that we created to compare it with some of the other messages that exist already. And then we did this through a couple of different research studies. So we really wanted to make sure that our research and the outputs from our research were aligned with disabled adults' lived experiences and the priorities as well for them. So that was a really quick overview of what we did as a group and why we did it as well, just to provide that background to the example that we're going to talk through. So we did really have a great experience as a co-production group. And I'm just going to talk through a couple of the advantages and, in a way, a couple of the barriers as well that we faced and kind of how we overcome them. So I think a really important and actually really lovely part of the project was how the members of the group who were working within academia and outside of academia really learnt from each other. So we really got to know each other as people. So, you know, for example, one group member got married in the time that we were doing this project, and we were all sort of keeping up to date with that. But it was other things as well, such as I remember I went on holiday in that period and I came to the next meeting and someone said, "Oh, how was your holiday?" So it was really nice that we kind of remembered different aspects about people's lives as well. And we learned about each other's worlds and each other's experiences, and in some ways, the way they converged and diverged as well. But we also learned about some of the barriers that each group kind of experienced. So just as a really quick example, when we do ethics applications for our academic research, we always have to put compulsory forms into an ethics board for them to check that we're doing the right things and we're keeping our participants safe and things like that. And the way the forms are structured are not always the most accessible. Some of the wording on them and some of the things we have to include are just not as accessible, which was raised by the co-production group. And we did our best, Patrick and I did our best to adapt the forms as much as possible in line with the feedback. But it was sometimes really tricky because while Patrick and I completely agreed with the group, we knew that we couldn't do the research unless those things were on the forms in some way or another. So I think that was a key example of how we were able to kind of learn from each other in a way. We learned about accessibility and the ways that the forms were not fit for purpose, but equally we were able to share knowledge about the research process. So I think that was just one example. There was many more. And I think it was really important because people with lived experience of some of the things that researchers want to explore have really often been left out of research and or actively excluded from it as well. So movements like Nothing About Us Without Us, coming from the autistic and autism community, have encouraged researchers to really think about how we must engage with people who have that lived experience for a whole range of reasons. And I think this project was a really good way of showing the benefits and the real value of doing that genuinely as well. And when I talk about value, I don't just mean getting information from people and then using it for career development or whatever other reason. I mean genuinely co-creating knowledge together that will help the communities who need it the most. So in this case, it was disabled adults who were interested in maybe participating in physical activity. So it's really about that impact and making that difference. And it's about making sure that research priorities really align with what communities need and what they'll benefit from. So I think that our co-production group wasn't tokenistic in that me and Patrick didn't come into the group and kind of hope that everyone would just agree with what we already wanted to do. We genuinely didn't go in with preconceived ideas. We went in really openly and we were ready to go in any direction really that was driven by ideas from the group. So I think that was a really crucial thing to say is, you know, you don't want to go in with those preconceived ideas and kind of just hope that everyone agrees, because in that case, what's the point of co-production? You're not really generating those new ideas. So I think this also links to the idea of power dynamics. So I think it's particularly important in the co-production group like ours, where we had people working from within and outside of academic research spaces. So I remember one group member saying how academic titles and accolades can be quite scary. But I also remember the same group member saying how comfortable they felt within the group because of the environment that we'd all created together. And I think it really highlights the need to ensure that from the outset, everyone's equal within the group and that no opinion's more important than the other one. I think that's quite easy to maybe say that, but I think actually enacting that in practice can be difficult when you've got so many different people with so many different experiences coming into the group. But I think that's probably one of the most crucial things when you're doing co-production. And I think the feedback that we got from the group, because we asked them at the end, like, you know, we asked all of us as a group what went well, what could be improved, and the group did say that it really was a safe space, and everyone seemed comfortable to be able to tell us how we could improve as well. And when I say we, I mean Patrick and I, because there were some mistakes that we made throughout the process, because everyone's human. We did make mistakes. And I think instead of responding defensively, we really tried to engage with different opinions within the group. And that was really important. And I don't just mean between academics and people outside of that academic space. I just mean every member of the group engaging with everyone else's opinions. And that was something that I think contributed to the safe space overall. And I think our co-production group felt like we had a really genuine partnership during the whole process. We spent quite a lot of sessions together. I think it was about 12 in the end, and each meeting was 2 hours. So we spent quite a lot of time together. And actually, we decided to have a closing ceremony, like in the Olympic style closing ceremony, to mark the end of the project, because we actually really all missed the meetings when they stopped. We kind of got used to, got to know each other, got used to meeting each other. And it was quite emotional, really, throughout the whole experience. It could be quite tiring as well after meetings, because we were discussing such emotive topics. But actually, we really enjoyed the process and working together. So having that closing ceremony was a really nice way to mark kind of the end of it, but also the start of some of the other research that followed it as well. So it didn't feel one-sided in that way. And I think a good example of that is that all members of the co-production group will be authors on all of our research output. So it just shows the extent to which we were all involved together in the research process in many different ways. So I think kind of to sum up some of the things that I've said, I think 2 key takeaways really were making our approach person-centered and needs-based, because everyone came at the project with their own lived experiences, including the academic members as well. And I think it was coming together as actual people rather than people in very specific roles or boxes is what really made our project a success. So I'm going to hand over now to Patrick just to add a couple more points to what I've spoken about.
Thank you, Chloe, and it was great to hear a summary. A few sort of other key learnings that we found that were sort of pivotal in the process. I think co-production has so much power to make change, not just through institutions, through society, through messages, but to set the standard for the field. So one of the institutional changes we made was around remunerating participants. So as Chloe said, we had 12 sessions, 2 hours each. We went to the uni and said, the guidance that we've been provided on how to remunerate people isn't actually fit for purpose, and it isn't fair. We're asking for 2 hours of people's time, but the uni suggested we pay them £20 as a way to say thank you, which is very clearly not enough. And initially, the uni disagreed with Chloe and I, but we had support for the co-production group, who then joined with us to say, we can't say nothing about us without us unless we're actually compensating people accordingly to their lived experience, which is, expertise as well. After some work with the university, they did buy in and they did change their remuneration more than £20. But more important than that was also the fact that we then set a new standard for the sector. So the National Institutes of Health Research then prompted a big review of how do we actually compensate people for their time based on their lived experience. And since that process, that has also changed. So one of the, I would say, unexpected learnings was this, making institutional change based on what people are telling us. And I think, as Chloe said, the biggest thing you can do is to be open to change, knowing that, things probably will change. You might have a plan, come in with some sort of goal of what you want to achieve, but equally be open to change. And that was one of the hardest things. As academics, we were taught to be scientifically rigorous and everything's a recipe. But in fact, in co-production, you have to be able to kind of let go of the recipe somewhat, change the ingredients if they need to change, but still come out with an outstanding product. So I think that was a key thing, was making institutional change from the inside, and letting go some of the rigid practices that we have been sort of used to, and to make them more people-centered, because again, universities generally have not been accessible spaces for everybody, and I think through our work we've really tried to do that. So fantastic process, and just be open to a bit of change on the go. So that's all I have to share, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick. And thank you to all of our speakers today. I know it's really challenging trying to fit everything into such a short amount of time, but you did a fantastic job, so thank you.